Hey, it's Matt Roush,
We're back. And Mike Brennan.
and we're back with another segment of the M Squared TechCast. And we
Okay.
have back with us again Shannon O'Hara, and she's going to tell us about her efforts in New York. I believe you're in one of the boroughs. Are you in Manhattan there, or where are you?
I'm in the Bronx.
Oh, in the Bronx. Okay.
In the Bronx.
But you are part of the fashion industry in New York, and you're going to tell us a little bit about seamstresses and what's the male term for that? Seamsters, I guess. I don't know. Like teamsters?
I mean, it's usually just referred to as tailors, or, there's different subcategories, but I won't bore you with all that.
Okay.
Yeah, we were debating what to call you earlier. I'll call your brigade because I know not all of them are tailors. There are a variety of folks. So we just said, well, tailor is nice and generic. Let's go with that. So
I mean, I think since there are so many subcategories, I've been referring to them as tradesmen, garment makers, garment craft people. Yeah, it's so nice to see you both. It's only been about a month since I talked with you, and so much happens so quickly every day in the PPE realm that it feels like I haven't talked to you in a couple of years.
Yeah, we're kind of operating on dog years here, I think. I'll tell you.
It's been the longest April that I can remember. So yeah, we've been in lockdown for 5 weeks in Michigan, and we still have 3 weeks to go. So Matt lives with his wife, but I live alone. So the only interaction I have is through these calls and things. So,
good. Okay.
But anyway,
Not that you're taking it so seriously.
Yeah, well, So anyway, let's talk a little bit about all the things that have transpired over the past month. Last month, roughly 30 days ago, you were just beginning this process, and tell us how it's gone.
Yeah, well, it has changed at a breakneck speed. I would say, honestly, I look back on that interview and I feel like I was like a naive young person. But, a lot has changed. A lot of PPE has been made. And I'd say when we were just gearing up and just getting started and just reaching out to I have a lot of political connections in New York, people that I worked on a lot of campaigns and stuff. And so we were just getting in touch with the New York City efforts to make PPEs and New York State's efforts to make PPEs. And since then, we've watched a lot of people try to jump into this realm and become PPE makers that aren't necessarily garment makers. And, if you talked to me a few weeks ago, I might have been a little discouraged. I don't know if you would have been enjoying having me on it, because I was seeing so many people that I kind of have been describing as people with dollar signs in their eyes that were trying to jump into this realm and get their cut. But here's the problem, is that these PPEs are, they've been made in like Southeast Asian countries and very low labor costs. And now we're trying to make them, bring the manufacturing more into the States. And that necessarily means higher labor costs. So we see these people that were trying to jump in, and I knew that they weren't garment makers just by having been in this industry my entire career. You can tell when somebody doesn't really understand what they're making. And but in the last couple weeks, my colleagues and I have started to notice, the factories I'm working with and whatnot, these people are coming with requests that are just way too low to employ people with that. And if, and we don't, our Skilled Laborers Brigade doesn't want to be a sweatshop, but we can't hire people for less than minimum wage. I mean, we can't break the law. So we're starting to see those people that weren't the correct fits fail. And then the people like myself and some of the factories we work in conjunction with, everybody's starting to be the ones that people want to work with. So that's been exciting. And for that month that we were watching the paid work be so low, I've been speaking so closely this entire time. I've had a great relationship with the governor of New York's office. And one of the first things that started to happen that was very sad was that the hospitals were refusing to to buy. So that I don't know if that's an issue that anybody else has brought up. I listened to your interview with the 3D printers, which is almost a parallel group to what I've been, where they're like the professional 3D printers. I'm the professional garment makers. And then they have like the maker spaces, and we have all the home sewers that have been doing a great job on their volunteer behalf. So in my many discussions with this governor, the governor's aides, they were saying that they were really frustrated that they were being told by the hospitals they wouldn't buy anything that the state was making. Really? So what we did under their suggestion was we just started fundraising. We were working with a wonderful organization called Runway of Dreams that is a group that that makes clothing for people with disabilities. So we've been working with them to do fundraising campaigns and then to help with the disability community, which is a very ignored community. But we've made masks for several different groups, and not just in New York. We had a big push out that went to firefighters in California, and it's been exciting. But so now that I'm starting to see the dust settle with these people that probably weren't the right fit for the garment industry, we're starting to see a lot more grants and investor opportunities. And so I think what's happening is that since it's so much more expensive to manufacture in America, but we are very aware that this is a national security issue. It's not having manufacturers in America, as we've seen during this pandemic, has been a national security issue. So we're starting to try to figure out how to really seriously bring manufacturing back on shore. And I get the feeling from my discussions with New York State that they're doing it. I know LA, I know Detroit, I know that there's some different areas that are really taking this seriously. And so, we have been finding that the investors and the grant providers are trying to fill in that gap between what people can pay for PPEs right now, because they didn't plan on having domestically produced PPEs, and the gap between what they can pay is being filled by grants and investors.
Yeah, there's a couple of organizations here in Detroit. I know there's a garment industry group called Detroit Sewn.
Yes.
That's been working on this, and there's also several of our auto suppliers that work in various sort of industrial fabrics that are used in the auto industry that I know are making gowns. I don't know about masks and face shields and stuff like that.
Yes, we've been doing gowns. Gowns is a particular, because it's a certain classification. You do need to have a FDA approved fabric. And I think the last time I was here, I was explaining to you how difficult it is to get these medical grade fabrics. But we're starting, mills are starting to produce this stuff domestically. I'm actually quite optimistic about the direction we're going in.
Yeah.
Well, Ford is.
That's always been the downside of global supply chains. Is it's great that we help China create a middle class, but on the other hand, what happens when China gets mad at us and they quit shipping us this stuff?
Or even what happens when China gets sick, right. That's what this issue was. And now that I'm seeing like some domestic mills starting to produce fabric, we have the labor here. I have in my group 500, we're starting to get more and more requests. So we're starting to do outreach. I am confident that the labor force is here. And we've even started to turn our eyes towards, this is where we're at in the moment. I told you where we were, where we've come to, and where I see us going is to start to seriously talk about manufacturing in regional efforts. It can't just be New York, Detroit, and LA. Each region needs to have so we've been looking into possible factories we could grow, finding spaces and things that we could do in the future.
Cool.
So that's good news. And we may be bringing some of this stuff back on shore then, as it were. And because I know, a long time ago, 100 years ago, the textile industry was in New England, then it moved to the South, and then it moved offshore, again, chasing cheap labor, right?
It was less than 100 years ago. We had a pretty, I think we were making the majority of our clothing up through the 70s in America. So we have done it. You know, it's kind of like you're in Detroit. You understand the car industry. It wasn't that long ago, and we do have the skilled labor here. You know, and what we're trying to do now is the issue is that when we get past this initial crisis that we're all trying to just run and catch up and kind of build the plane while we're flying, we have to start discussing as a country onshoring manufacturing, because it is a national security issue. And you know, a couple of I have 3 other co-founders of the Skilled Laborers Brigade that you haven't met yet, but 2 of them are industry leaders in the sustainability movement. In fact, one of our co-founders, Rachel Kibbe, was just on the cover of Women's Wear Daily a couple days ago as one of the leaders in this particular movement within the fashion industry. And, you know, if we're going to start talking about climate change and issues like that, manufacturing it is important to be doing it regionally and at least within the country.
Yeah, I know you're right about how it wasn't that long ago, because I remember, I'm pretty old, but I remember as a kid seeing commercials for the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, where they would have a bunch of ladies singing "Look for the Union Label." You know, so
that industry still exists. I mean, that trade union still exists in New York today. They're now called Unite Here. Yeah. But you know, we have this stuff. Americans are capable of this. We are people who get stuff done. You know, we're the thinkers, we're the hard workers. We have an American work ethic that is, you know, unparalleled. And, you know, sometimes we get called lazy, but I am a member of the working class. I'm a garment maker. You know, I believe in our working class.
Well, certainly that's a good case. Now, what do you still need that you don't have? I know you're looking for the correct materials, but that's very expensive stuff, right?
Yes. Well, you know, we have been, when we last came on, we were trying to figure out we were thinking the government was just going to step in, or a hospital was going to step in and help us buy a large amount of fabric, and then we would go with that. And what we're starting to see is that the model that's starting to work is that, you know, everybody wants this stuff. Everybody keeps coming to me, will you make it? Will you make it? So I'm starting to like field some of the more dire, let's say, purchase orders or donation requests, and then taking them to people who are offering grants or investors and saying, you know, can you help us fulfill this? And also, I believe that the differences between what people can pay and what is needed are going to start to shrink, because I think people are starting to realize, like, it just costs more to make stuff in America. And you know, we've been dealing with hospitals that were just so shocked by, when you buy, let's use gowns as an example, you can buy a pack of 100 gowns for like $15 that were manufactured in China. When you manufacture a domestic gown, first of all, it's fabric, it's not disposable, and it can be $20 to $30 per gown. So, you know, you can see why the hospitals have been shocked. But the good news, I mean, if we're going to go back to the sustainability argument, is that these things are reusable. You know, they're not being thrown away. They can be laundered. This is how we ran our hospitals before we decided everything should be disposable. You know, it's not, this is a method that, or a way we can go back to. And I believe, like, I know Governor Cuomo seems to feel this way, but and I'm sure other governors have felt this, that it's the national security problem. We have to start doing this.
Okay, and so if folks want to reach out to you, Shannon, if they want to support you or want to give you orders, or as our mutual friend says, purchase orders, how do they do that?
You can look at our website, skilleddlaborersbrigade.com. We do have some contact information through that. You could shoot us an email or, yeah, that would probably be the easiest way. We have Instagram and, at Skilled Laborers Brigade. We've been doing some some really fun little fundraisers and stuff with some of our partners. But I think it would probably be easiest just to go onto the website.
All right. Thanks very much, Shannon O'Hara of Skilled Laborers Brigade. We hope we can help you out and continued growth and success to you.
Additional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.